Love one another as I have loved you. Did she think I had been good? That's what I asked my mother that Sunday afternoon. Of course you were good, honey. You were made good. It's just some of your behavior that we might revisit, she had said in her Virginia accent. So she'd found me out, sitting there in that pew in one of those awful crinkly dresses she liked me to wear. I couldn't take the stiff collar and all the frou-frou accessories that itched when I touched them. So giving the side eye and seeing that she was busy singing the hymn, I'd slipped them off, one by one, the belt, the collar, and this was the coup de gras, those awful white lacy socks. Problem was, having refused to carry a purse, I didn't have anywhere to put the irritating frills. So I did what I thought any sensible daughter of my mother would do and rolled everything up purposefully into a ball, which I carried out like a champ from church that day. Mother wanted me to be a lady, and I wanted to be myself. In our brief 7 years together, we would come to an agreement of sorts that who I should be was ultimately less about wearing the kinds of clothes she wanted me to wear, and more about being the best version of myself that I could be. That was the message I've carried with me all these years anyway. Love one another as I have loved you. Like an elder guiding a child, Jesus taught us how to be in relationship. This was Jesus' takeaway message as part of his farewell discourse. In stark contrast to the long-standing and unfair standards for motherhood, and let's not forget to mention how impossible the straits have been during COVID-19 for mothers, Jesus' call to love, while implying its share of sacrifice, is not a call for selfless love. It is not a command requiring dissolution of self for the other, but a grounding love, a love that begins with God and that is shared communally. Yes, we are relational, and as Jesus' story reveals, relationships are full of loss and potential. In my mother's story, letting me emerge meant some loss for her. I wasn't going to be her little me. And her letting go of that so that I might thrive seems an act of love. A redirection of her own wishes so that mine might emerge and our relationship might flourish. Any of us who has cared for children has noticed our own agenda presenting itself in the relationship. But of course, Jesus' directive to love isn't for parents alone, it's for all of us in all kinds of relationships and all kinds of contexts. And before the message seems overly domesticated, please note that while it is a simple love we are called to, it is also radical. On the one hand, what Jesus calls us to is ordinary, or at least instinctive to us, like a child needing to assert herself and yet wanting to please her parent. It's our nature to need other people, and we thrive on positive interpersonal responses. This need for each other made social distancing during COVID so tremendously hard on us. And beyond the pandemic, deep social and racial traumas demand our attention. 400 years into it, the knee of white supremacy kneels on. Unrestrained capitalism warms our planet, burns our throats, coaxes our children into addiction. And for what? So 8 men can possess more wealth than 3.6 billion people do collectively? These truths require a radical love. The love of this kind calls for communal and sacrificial work to change systems of power and privilege. It requires relinquishing outdated and narrow views and ceding space for other people. There will be loss, and there is potential. After 14 months of isolation, as our world opens up again, we have a chance like never before to apply the law of love. Over these many months, we've loved each other by staying apart. But in our physical distance, a collective spiritual upwelling of truths has boiled over, and these demand reckoning. We'll need to make room for this healing along the way before the joy of Easter's new life is apparent. Vigilance is fatiguing. Ask any mother. Ask any caregiver. This fatigue has led to what seems a kind of numbness almost to what had been outrage, a flatness to what may be new life. I felt it last weekend at an outdoor gathering of friends. Finally vaccinated, we could be together in person, but being together didn't bring the exuberance I had expected. There was a palpable remove. My friends described feeling worn out when they had hoped to feel unfettered and activated. Last Monday, the New York Times ran an article titled, "There's a name for the blah you're feeling." It's called languishing. Languishing, the author explains, is the void between depression and flourishing, the absence of well-being. You don't have signs or symptoms of mental illness, but you're not the picture of mental health either. Untreated, the condition gets worse. The Desert Mothers and Fathers in the 4th century, early Christians who had lived as ascetic monks, called such a state of spiritual misery acedia, a state of relentless discomfort and inability to pray, a state that led to hatred of nearly everything. More recently, Kathleen Norris wrote in her book, Acedia, "For grace to be grace, it must give us things we don't know we need, and take us places where we didn't know we didn't want to go." We'll come through this time. Let's do it together. Grace Cathedral is marking 2021 as the year of healing. What might that healing look like for you? How might we heal together so that we can love the way God calls us to? Let's begin with prayer, personal and communal, to bring us into the awareness of the very love that always waits for us, the love we need in order to meet the reality of our social and spiritual crises. It is a love offered to all of us, mothers, fathers, sons and daughters, brothers, sisters, friends, the lonely. We are beginning to regather. What a blessing it will be when we can all be together. Come, Worship with us. However you are feeling, we want to know how you are. Come, sit in the pew with us. However you like to dress, we want to see you as you are. Together we will thrive, and we will encounter God's love and bring it to the world. Then no one will wonder, have we pleased our mother? Have we pleased our God? I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. Amen.